Hello, Winthrop College Republicans. My name is Tyler Griffin. I'm your former vice president. I'm now the chairman of the York County Republican Party somehow. And we're here with Senator Wes Climer, who is partially responsible for that
That's right.
in a way.
Good to see you again.
Good to
Thank
see
you
you.
for the invitation.
Yeah. I want this to be my last interview. I never got to have like an official final interview, so I thought it'd be nice to do it with you since a year ago now it would have been since we did the first one.
That's right.
And
yeah.
after you came Mick Mulvaney, Trey Gowdy,
Yep.
every single congressional candidate. So you set the stage very high.
How was your practice round? And then you got up to the real guys.
It's fun. I think I've told people this. I was actually the most nervous for your interview. Like after that, I wasn't really nervous. I was like, why am I nervous about interviewing Wes Climer when I've like met you several times
Right,
before?
yeah.
But I was like, I don't know.
That can be really intimidating.
You're very intimidating. So now that you've been through one legislative session, what was it like adjusting to your first year as a freshman senator?
I think anytime you start a new job, there's always a learning curve, right? And so I'll say well, at least I hope I'll be know a few more tricks and be effective in new and better ways in the next session than I was on day one this session. So it's one of the things that I found really surprising is how often the Senate is divided not along partisan lines, but instead is divided along, I call it time frame lines. So there are some really good conservatives on a lot of mainline conservative issues who don't have a strong interest in reforming government. They don't have a strong interest in changing the system to make it work better. They're kind of status quo conservatives. And likewise, there are some pretty, traditionally liberal Democrats who are very interested and very committed to reforming government in a way that makes it work better. They're not wedded to the status quo. And so in that way, it was both discouraging and encouraging because you kind of hope folks in your own party would be with you on a lot of those reform questions, but encouraging because there's a real opportunity to work across the partisan lines with Republicans and Democrats who are committed to changing the way government works so that it can get more efficient and be more accountable to people and ultimately deliver better outcomes for taxpayers.
Yeah. Well, I remember speaking to you last year, and that seems like forever ago, with all the stuff that happens between then. That was one of the things you talked about, is like wanting to fix ethics, wanting to make Columbia work more effectively. And so in terms of policy, do you feel like a lot of the stuff you want to see get done happened this year in Columbia?
No, this was a pretty tough year for conservatives. We, although it is very good and long overdue that the state is going to spend more money on roads, there was a block of conservatives, and I'm among them, that thought there's plenty of room in the budget to fund quality infrastructure without raising taxes on your people by $600 million. And so, my view is that we should have, if some taxes have to go up, then we ought to lower other taxes by an equal or greater amount. We're in the minority on that, lost that. My view is that, in the view of really 2/3 of the Republican caucus, about 18 of us, that we needed real DOT reform. That is, making DOT a cabinet agency that is directly accountable to the governor and therefore directly accountable to the people. That's another one where 18 Republicans, 2/3 of our caucus, were defeated by the rest of the Senate. And so those were two pretty disappointing things in the biggest ticket item. The other one that really still kind of surprises me is that there was a huge pension bill that came through very early on. It's the first major piece of legislation that we dealt with this session, and so the first major piece of legislation that I was party to. And actually, the first on that bill, I had a couple amendments that passed. But I was surprised how little reform we got into that. Really, all it did was raise taxes by in the neighborhood of $800 million, and we didn't get much in the way of structural reform to the system to protect taxpayers down the road. And so that was disappointing. And So on both of those fronts, those are items that still require work in the next session.
Yeah. Well, with those being the two biggest issues of the session, because I was there with you as a page, and you were talking about that every single day, practically, and it was on the TV all the time. Going into the 2018 session, do you think we'll still be talking about the gas tax and roads and the pension in some way or another still?
Yeah. So I'm on, as you know, I'm on the transportation committee, and there still remains a great deal of work to do to make sure that every last cent of that road money is spent as effectively and as efficiently as it can, and that is an ongoing, permanent job. Well, at least as I see it, a critical part of my job for as long as I serve is to make sure that with that massive investment in our transportation infrastructure, that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck out of that. And a big part of that is cleaning up the highly politicized way that road money is allocated. We need to depoliticize DOT so that funds are allocated according to merit and not political favors and horse trading. And I mean that has to get fixed in order for us to really get our roads fixed.
Now, at the time that this video will come out, this would long pass, but tomorrow is the last town hall you'll be doing for now. I'm sure you'll be doing more in the future.
I will do more.
So what's it been like kind of over the past month and a half that you've done these town halls, kind of getting the feedback from people and just talking to everyday constituents?
So I represent in the Senate about 107,000 people, and they're spread out all over York County. And so I'm doing a total of 6 town halls. We've done 5. The last one is in Fort Mill tomorrow night. And one thing is I'm just so grateful to people who take time away from their job or their family or all the other responsibilities of life to come out and share with me what they think about what's going on at the state government. And every single one of the town hall meetings have been good, productive, polite.
That's good. That's good, especially with what the news has been like the past few months.
And so it's nothing like what you see on the news. I mean, people are nice and kind, and it's not that everybody agrees on everything, but we're civil with one another and understand. We all live here, and we all want what's best for our community, and some of us just believe in, we all want the same. We all have the same goals. We just believe there are different ways of getting there, and people are very respectful of one another. And I've just been just really humbled with the people's willingness to come out and share their unique insights from their various fields of business or their experience in education or their experience in healthcare, and hopefully it'll make me a better representative of the interests of the people who elected me to go down to Columbia and work for them.
Now, speaking of town halls, the very first York County meeting I ever went to, and this was before the one where I met you, was you were still chairman at the time, but it was a town hall style event. I think there was something about Common Core going on at the time. There were 2 senators and 2 representatives there, and I remember they were getting hammered, and I even stood up at one point. I said like some snarky question to them, and that got an applause from everybody.
Yeah.
And so now you're in the position where, I think a month or 2 ago, we had a town hall with you and Representative Simmerl. So now you're doing the town hall.
Shoes on the other foot
you used
now.
to be chairman.
Yeah.
So what's it like kind of, at one point you were chairman and now you're a state senator, kind of being on the other side of that equation?
Well, I think that experience gives you a running head start in this, because you spent time in an organized and methodical way, paid attention to what's going on at the State House, been involved in it tangentially in a lot of cases, but still kind of a working knowledge of what's going on, and that kind of helps prepare you for ultimately doing the job. The other thing is, the Republican Party, for as long as I've been a part of it, has not, to be kind, spoken in unison, nor do 46 senators, and so you get used to, as a county party chairman, working to the extent that you can, trying to work productively with people who disagree to achieve a common outcome.
Yeah.
And those lessons are very much applicable to what you have to do in the legislature, because your end goal is to, you might be on, one person might be on A, one person might be on Z, but somewhere in between there's an opportunity for you to do some good for the people who elected you to serve them, and that's true in a political party, and it's true in the legislature.
It's definitely been interesting because people complain that there's partisan tension overall in America, but then even if you look on the county level within one county party,
yeah,
there's different factions that represent either very, very socially conservative, very, very economically conservative. So doing that balancing act has been very interesting serving as chairman up until this point.
And politics is a game of addition.
Yeah.
Right? You want to be adding to your numbers and persuading people to your view, and the best way to do that is to do it with kindness and humility and care, and try to attract people as opposed to repelling them with anger and viciousness.
Yeah. So getting to a little more of a personal part of this interview, what's been one of the most interesting things that's happened to you while you were in Columbia so far?
Oh, wow.
Besides having me as a page.
So besides having the best page in the legislature, let's see, I remember, and maybe this isn't interesting, but it was a fun day. It was the first day I got up and spoke on the floor during a floor debate, because for years I've been sitting at home watching C-SPAN and watching ETV, and you're sitting there thinking, and I know anybody who watches the legislative process on TV, you know, every couple minutes you're sitting there thinking, man, somebody really ought to say such and such. Yeah. And I was sitting there on the floor and thought, man, somebody really ought to. Oh, wait a minute! I can get up and do that right now.
You're that guy.
I picked up my microphone and said it, and that was it was pretty wonderful. Yeah. It is a. I mean, this will sound like a platitude, but it's not. I mean, it is an extraordinary honor and a privilege to be able to speak on behalf of your community in that legislature, and and that's not lost on me every single day when I'm down there. You know, I'm not down there for me. I'm down there on behalf of the 100,000 plus people who are dependent on me to get the job done back home, where my 4 children and my wife are. Yeah, and it's just a real joy to serve.
Now, so this show airs on the Winthrop College Republicans Facebook, and they're college students, and I'm still a college student also. So what advice would you have, either from when you were in college or just now? Like, what advice would you have for college students going forward?
So, actually, it's some advice that I think you might offer people too, and that is that when you are in college, you ought to have a job. You ought to have some paying job while you're in college to keep yourself practiced in the skills of interacting with customers, interacting with managers, to dust off your resume, and keep you grounded in the real world. Yeah. Because I think a lot of times, when you're studying all kinds of theories and esoteric stuff in college, you can there's a tendency to kind of lose touch with reality. Yeah. And so I had a job the whole way through. I sold shoes and tents and backpacks and hunting equipment at an outfitter, and it was, I learned a lot in college, and I'm glad to have had a pretty solid education. But there's no substitute for going out and working hard and earning a paycheck. Yeah. And the earlier you get into that habit, I think the better off you're going to be.
It's definitely been because it's one of the hardest things that people talk about in college is balancing. People feel like they don't have enough time to do something, but I think
wait till you have 4 kids, 2 jobs, and a working spouse.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a matter of, you can make the time if you want to do something.
That's right.
That's when I've got the Steak and Shake gig, which is amazing. I'm chairman of the county party, and then school, and then I have a relationship myself, and then more personal stuff. So it's just trying to find that balance and trying to find that sweet spot where you still have time for even yourself. Because I feel like that's the thing a lot of people miss, is they don't find time for themselves.
Right.
Because then they're doing just work stuff, and then they get blown out, and they just,
Yeah.
So
I don't think I'd say I characterize it not about finding balance, it's finding what kind of imbalance you're willing to live with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate you coming out today. I appreciate also all the advice that you've given me since I've become chairman and even before then, and always being someone I can talk to.
You're doing a great job, and I really appreciate all the help you've given me and all the good work you're doing on behalf of the conservative cause. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Wes.
Yeah.
Good talking with you.
Yes, sir.